it was just making my world bigger by meeting all these different people from different parts of the world. But we had to take a foreign language, and I'd already taken Spanish in high school. So I thought I'll take Japanese because my friend's Japanese, and I help him with his English, and he can help me with his Japanese, and I know all of his family and friends and connections here, and I'll be able to practice it. So I took Japanese when I was in college, and the other classes that went along with it, I learned as much as possible about it, and I funneled that right into the story. 私はデブです。どうぞよろしく。どういたしまして。
Okay, what did you say?
Hi, my name is David. Please favor me.
What's the possibility of seeing Kabuki made into a movie?
Well, this question has like a lot of history to it. Shortly after Kabuki was published, I started getting a variety of interest from film and television, and at one point HBO wanted to do Kabuki as a television series at HBO. And so I was visiting with HBO, and there was a producer there named Catherine Winder, and she was very passionate about the project, and I really liked the idea of doing it as a television series because the comics themselves are very episodic in nature. With each issue you have a beginning and a middle and an end, and kind of a cliffhanger that propels you to the next episode. And I felt like that would translate really well to a TV show. It's kind of the same kind of format. And we were developing it at HBO for a little bit. And then she called me up one day and she said that she was going to be leaving HBO, and she was going to be moving to Fox. And that I could leave Kabuki at HBO if I wanted to, but she was the primary person dealing with it. So it might be better if I let her bring it to Fox with her and to give her my blessing to offer it to Fox. But Fox was going to be doing it as a live-action feature film. And so I said, yeah, let's do that. And Fox ended up purchasing the option of Kabuki like 4 times in a row. Like you buy an option, it gives them the exclusive right to develop it for like a year or two. And then while they were doing that, they would hire me to do writing on it, and I worked with the Academy Award-winning writer and director John Sayles, who I was already a fan of. So I got to work with a lot of really interesting people in developing it when it was at Fox, and every time the option would run out, they would buy it again, and they would hire me to do more work on it. And so I learned a lot when it was at Fox, how to work with people diplomatically, how to, get your point across, but still take into consideration other people's points and let them know that you feel it's valid. So I learned to navigate that system to a certain degree and to play well with others, but to still present, my views about things. But eventually, when you make a deal with a studio, and you might see eye to eye with the studio executive that's there, but the deal isn't with the executive, it's with the studio. And so sometimes the executives come and go. So and then next thing you know, another executive is there, and they don't necessarily see it the same way that you would come to terms with it with the previous person. So eventually I got the rights back from Fox. And the next stage of the story is Quentin Tarantino's producer, Lawrence Bender. He was interested in making a film of Kabuki. And he had a really fascinating idea, because this is why Lawrence is such a great producer. He had such a clever, unique idea, very out-of-the-box idea that I'd never heard of before. He said, I was in his office at a table next to him, and he said, I know how to film in Japan. I just filmed Kill Bill 1 and 2 in Japan. So here's the idea. We film Kabuki in Japan as a Japanese film, all in Japanese, all Japanese actors, Japanese directors. We release it as a Japanese film only in Japan. We give it a couple of years, let it circulate around the world. People, look at it as this interesting, odd Japanese film. And then, a couple of years later, we do an American remake of our Japanese film. And it actually appealed to me because I thought, oh wow, that way you already look at it in the context of this interesting creature on its own. But so no matter if there's some kind of quirks to it, it's still interesting that you see it through the context of it being filmed as a Japanese film. But that anything that we feel like we can improve on, now with a bigger budget, we can come back and finesse things that we think maybe didn't work as good as they could have, and you can start over and do it the way you want to if something didn't come through the first time. So I thought, oh, what an interesting idea. And we pursued that for a little bit. But he had a deal with a Japanese director that was attached to it. That didn't completely pan out because of scheduling, and he was filming Al Gore's film Inconvenient Truth at the time. And just for whatever reason, for time reasons, it didn't quite work out. But so many great stories in the process of trying to make all these things with different people. And all of that kind of, I would say in general, when you're trying to make something, it doesn't always happen immediately, but you learn so much from each step of it that you can then apply to the next step. So none of that is wasted effort or wasted time. And the next thing that happened is Neil Gaiman's producer, Kat Mihos, contacted me, and Neil and I had done this print that Neil wrote this poem specifically for this. It's called Words of Fire. And he emailed me and asked me if I would illustrate this poem. And initially, it was done as a tattoo. It was designed to be a tattoo for someone's back. And so they got this as a complete tattoo on their back, with the idea that it would be kind of like a limited edition of one, right? but since it was made public, lots of people now have this tattoo on their back. And then we made a print of this. And Kat Mihos, Neil Gaiman's assistant and producer, she dealt with me making the print of this, and then we ended up making another print with Neil Gaiman, the Goldfish Pool, and this was the most recent one that we did for this year, with Neil Gaiman's Wish, and then my artwork with it. And I'm currently working on another print with Neil Gaiman right now that I'll turn in with her. But Kat was Neil's producer in producing some things, and she was interested in producing Kabuki. So I signed a deal with Kat as producer and Neil Gaiman as executive producer to bring Kabuki to the screen. And Kat introduced me to Neil's agent at CAA, and we were moving forward with that. And she was also developing The Shy Creatures, which is a children's book of mine. So I also did that deal with her. And we worked on that for a while. And recently, I do have some more recent updates, but I can't say what they are at the moment. But next time you talk to me, I'll probably be able to say them. But I do have some good news that can't be public just yet on that.
How did you go from doing Kabuki to getting your Daredevil stint in Marvel?
That very first Kabuki volume that I did in college, it was called Kabuki Circle of Blood. It was the collection that collected the first 7 Kabuki books that I did. Having that in print from a small publisher called Caliber Comics, I would then go to comic book stores and just